Yo, yo, yo. Another episode of Halftime Hangout provided by me, Jack Hands, of course. Special episode. We have our first honorary guest, Michael Dumpson. How about you say hello to the people?
Hey, shout out all the fans, shout out all the people listening to the podcast. I'm grateful for the opportunity. I just want to go ahead and drop a little knowledge. See if I can swim with the big sharks of the podcast game. But I appreciate
Mm-hmm,
the
mm-hmm.
opportunity for sure, for sure.
Wonderful. So, as we do know in the NBA, big news what happened. Blockbuster trade.
Mm.
It was only a 3-team trade, but by the time the Rockets flipped LeVert, it might as well have been a 4-team trade. That details James Harden obviously going to the Nets. The Rockets get Oladipo, Dante Exum, Kirkos, 3 Brooklyn Nets first-round picks, a first-round pick from Houston in 2022, 2024, and 2026, all by the Nets, a 22 and 2 first-round pick from Cleveland, and 4 pick swaps. The Cavs get Jared Allen and Taurean Prince. The Pacers get Karis LeVert and a second-round pick. Now, Mike, as a guest, what are your thoughts on the deal, mostly for the Nets perspective right now?
Um, like my first, as far as like my worries about this as like a rumor, like going into the season, and everything. My room, like my fear for them is thinking like depth. Like Kyrie is great when he plays. Kevin Durant is amazing. James Harden now is awesome. But you lose a key person like LeVert. When Durant goes to the bench, LeVert is great. He's a 18, 19, 20 point per game scorer. And now they don't have Dinwiddie. Like they could get him for the playoffs potentially, but since Dinwiddie's out, like they're gonna be leaning on that. They're gonna be leaning on that first group. And then I don't even really know who they have coming behind that. They got some sleeper players, but I'll say but you can't complain. You just got James Harden, so like I think that it's probably a win-win for everybody right now. That's my initial thought.
All right. So I agree. I mean, they obviously lost a lot of depth. I will say they still do have Joe Harris.
Yeah.
They have Jaron Jordan, obviously. They have Landry Shamet, Jeff Green. They have plenty of pieces that can play some defense, shoot the ball.
They have some nice roles. They have some nice role options. But like, I mean,
but
like
when
for
you have
example,
when you have 3 superstars, that's all you really need at that point, just role options. You don't need.
oh, for sure. Because I'm sure, especially when you have people like James Harden, who you see all the jokes and stuff about how like he holds the ball a ton. He makes teammates better when
He does.
he makes his teammates better. So I think that it's a tough thing when you look at it at first and what their team identity was. But I think it's something that I think if you can get James Harden, you get James Harden.
So that's what I was going to talk about, because a lot of people are going to point to there was only one ball or whatnot, but I would say that KD, willing player off the ball. Kyrie has shown he can be a willing player off the ball, playing with LeBron. He has played off the ball before. He's played off the ball pretty well when he has played this year. Now James Harden, he hasn't played off the ball since OKC probably, but I think overall it's still a net positive when it comes to fit. I think the biggest concern with this team, obviously we cannot predict injuries, but the biggest worry with this team is got to be Kyrie Irving. Reports came out today that he's furious at the Nets for not giving him more input on their head coaching, and he's not in favor of Steve Nash. And the relationship with Kevin Durant has been described as very distant. This happened before the trade, but it still happened today. And I like to say that, I do not feel sorry for the Nets organization at all. They've seen Kyrie Irving other places. They know Kyrie Irving is a little bit like this. But I do feel bad for the Nets players. I mean, they're trying to go out there and win, and Kyrie is in Zoom meetings with the Maryland District Attorney during one of their games. And again, I understand he has problems, but there's no communication with them, and he's very distant with Kevin Durant, just very distant with the whole team. He didn't even tell Steve Nash that he was going to miss games. He's being very distant, but overall fit, if they can stay healthy, and as long as they're not a huge team chemistry issue, which I don't think there will be, if I'm being honest, I don't see a team that can beat them in the finals.
As far as me, like Kyrie Irving, is like Antonio Brown for football to me. Like they're not the same, but like my opinion on them is the same.
Mm-hmm.
I will say that me, I'm a huge Kyrie Irving fan. I will argue day and night about him. Kyrie Irving makes it extremely hard to be a Kyrie Irving fan because of stuff like this. Because I just want to see him hoop. You know, I want to see them play.
Of
So
course.
as far as like, I think they're hitting a little like rough stuff right now. I feel like over time it won't be a huge deal because I mean when you get down to the playing part of it, I mean you look at how some of them work. I mean James Harden played some of his best seasons with Chris Paul. Chris Paul is a ball dominant guard. He needs to like now. Can Chris Paul play off ball? Yeah, because he's an incredibly smart player. But he is most effective with the ball in his hands creating. So
Yep.
James Harden is he shoots well enough and moves well enough to play off ball. KD is a Swiss Army knife of a player on offense. He can do everything. He can run the pick and roll. He can run the pick and pop. He can run. He can play off ball. He can play on ball. So I think that you don't have to worry about him. And Kyrie is a bit of the same way. I think for like he probably be my biggest question mark off ball. But you look at some of the stats. I mean he had the highest usage rate on the Cavs when they won the finals with LeBron. It was very close between him and LeBron. But I mean like LeBron, and it looks like LeBron has the ball the whole time when you watch them play. So he can be effective. Now as far as the off the court stuff, I don't really have much of an opinion on it. I think it's bad. I think it's not good, but I think long term it'll be okay. You know, I heard you I think the most surprising stuff about it is the Steve Nash stuff. Like obviously you don't know what it is till you start playing, but I've heard Kyrie Irving and talk about Steve Nash and then Steve Nash talk about Kyrie Irving, and they seem like really cool. Like Steve Nash, I watched like a podcast that he had with JJ Redick, and he was saying that like when he was still playing, he would train with Kyrie Irving sometimes in the summer, and he would talk. He was really excited about the future with him, and he didn't mention anybody. He was like, "I'm really excited for Kyrie Irving. I'm really excited for Kyrie and Kevin to play on the court, pick and roll, running Kevin at the 5, all that crazy stuff." Like I think that they'll be able to work it out. Especially, I think this trade will be a lot. I think this trade will help them.
No, I do as well. Now, just real quick before I get to the actual trade aspect, I will say just real fast that this is probably it won't be the best super team of all time when it just comes to pure talent, no accolades. It's got to be the most talented super team we've ever seen. I mean, you have three players that are arguably top 10 talent wise of all time, not greatest, but just talent wise of all time between James Harden, Kevin Durant, and Kyrie Irving.
I mean, you got three players that when they're healthy, they're arguably top 3 at their position.
No, exactly.
And then you have 2 of them who are top 5 when they're healthy, like everybody. So I mean, you look at this like, because I feel like you look at the Heat, because my mind immediately goes to the Heat because I'm just like I'm obviously a LeBron guy.
Yeah.
Like that Heat team doesn't compare to this team.
No.
Off of talent wise. Now,
No.
could the Heat team beat this team? I don't really know. But I'm saying like honestly probably not. Maybe. Yeah. I don't know. It really just depends on what LeBron's able to do. I guess.
It depends on chemistry, of course.
You just look at like, I mean, and I'm really interested to see what happens when they play together. Because I mean, like James Harden was great when he played with Kevin Durant, but they've all changed a lot since then. I'm really interested in that because I mean, you look at Chris Bosh. Chris Bosh was 25 a game, 10 boards, leading his team to the playoffs, and then he leaves, and then he becomes like great player, or at least good player. But he plays that Kevin Love like role. Yeah. And then Dwayne Wade was good, but they don't compete. And then like the Warriors, like Steph Curry is amazing. And he's probably better than Kyrie Irving. He definitely is actually better than Kyrie Irving. But Klay does not touch James Harden. It's not close. And KD's obviously the same person, not the same person essentially. So.
Now, speaking of trade, just real fast before going to the other team, the only thing that's concerning about Nets for me is just that they have. So if they do suffer an injury, they cannot trade any of their picks within the years 2022 to 2027. Or they cannot trade a pick from now to 2027. I lied. Just because they've used all their trades for the next years or so.
Okay.
And there's no guarantee that Harden re-signs, KD or Kyrie re-sign. So when you get to the years 2026, 2027, it could be real. Like they could be really bad if it does not work out on Nets and they leave. But for right now, I mean, would you sacrifice that for a ring or two? Of course you would. It's that you got to play
I
for
mean,
championships, but
here's the thing: they all make a lot of money.
mhm,
Um, let's just say like off the top of my head, the youngest is Kyrie Irving, right?
I
Obviously.
believe so. Yes.
So like out of all three, he'd probably be like the worst one to build around,
Hmm.
obviously. But if you get into that later years of that like gap between that where they can't trade, I mean they're still gonna have money. They can still go out and sign people. They just can't build to the draft or make trades, which sucks. But I mean, I'm sacrificing that all day for 2-3 championship opportunities for sure.
No, yeah. So that's the only concern when it comes to the back end of the deal. We'll see how Harden holds up to his end of his career because he's most of the time out of shape and it hasn't hurt him yet. But when he gets older, he gets older. And like I said, KD and Kyrie aren't
I mean,
might not return. Who knows?
it could really. I mean, I feel like part of why they made the deal is they look at someone like the Lakers and they look at what they did to get Anthony Davis
Hmm.
and how it worked out.
Hmm.
Um, this is a little bit crazier because it's James Harden and just everything that James Harden, the baggage that he comes with, I guess. But and how we've been hearing about it for a while. It might be similar actually. I mean, it might just be recency bias, but um, it's probably they're looking at something like that, and I mean, if that's what you have to do to try to get to a championship, that's what you got to do.
But let's talk about the second biggest player in the deal, the Rockets. They got 8 picks, Oladipo. Kirk goes an Exum, but Oladipo and the 8 picks are the main thing. What do you think about the Rockets so right now?
Um, I'm actually gonna pull up their lineup because I know Bleacher Report put it on there somewhere. So oh, here it is. Here it is. It's interesting. Like
Mhm.
I haven't been really watching that much John Wall or like I know Christian Wood's playing great.
Mhm.
Um, it's a good team. It's a good team. Now, like, where are they at in the West right now? You know where that they are in the West?
They are 3-6. I don't know where they are exact. I don't know the exact placement. They are
Oh, really? So I guess it's
14th.
probably they're 14.
Yeah, three and
I mean,
six.
that team. I feel like consistent shooting might be an issue.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe just because like I don't know how good of a shooter John Wall would be. Oladipo is decent. Tucker is good.
Wall is shooting 32% on 4 threes a game.
I mean, what you will say is that they all play hard. They're all really scrappy on D. They're gonna be a fun team to watch.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that and on top of getting enough to compete now, they got a ton to compete in the future.
Mm-hmm.
And they have a ton to work with. So like, I mean, you cannot. I mean, that's definitely a W for the
No,
Rockets.
yeah.
That's definitely a W.
So we can assume that at least through 2025, I would say that the picks that the Rockets are receiving are going to be late 20s, which is fine. It's still draft picks, so it's still something. But this team makeup overall, like right now, they're 19th in offensive rating and 19th in defensive rating, so they just weren't very good on either side of the ball. And
Yeah.
part of that is James Harden just simply was not trying anymore. He was the last 4 games averaging like 17 points, 10 assists, whatever. He was not trying, so that could work. They do struggle shooting the 3 ball overall. They don't take as many threes. They don't make as many threes. They don't shoot a high percentage as many threes. And but they are decently okay at defending on ball when it comes to shooting percentage wise. They give up a little bit much in the paint, but I think when the lineup of Wall, Oladipo, you can throw House in there, um, Tucker, Cousins, Wood, Cousins, whatever lineup you want to go. I like Silas as a coach, Steven Sila. And you got an overall squad. Tucker can shoot from the corner. Eric Gordon's struggling from the 3 right now, but Daniel House can shoot. I think there's enough in the squad to at least make an AC at the tops, I would say right now.
I mean, you look like I'm gonna pull up the standings really fast. Standings. I mean, you look at what they have to compete. Like, I don't see the Spurs being any better than them. Like it's like they have some guys, but they can compete with teams like that. They'll be hovering around. Okay, like the Nuggets are unusually bad.
Yeah, they're playing a little bit better now though, but
But I don't know about them, but I think they compete with every team in that like 10 to 6, maybe even 5 range. Depend.
mhm.
I don't know what they're. I don't obviously I don't know what they're gonna be when you see because they're gonna be a different team.
Mhm.
But I think Victor Oladipo fits this mold a little bit more
Oh,
than
they
James
do.
Harden.
It does. I mean, they can give John Wall the ball more, which I mean, he's averaging 18, 5 and 4.5, 4.7, I guess. He's not shooting well from three, or he's shooting all right from three, shooting decent from the field. But actually, he is shooting. Let me see what he's shooting 45% from the field. So he's not shooting bad. So he's an average scorer, efficiency scorer. But I think OD will be more willing to go off the ball, and I think John Wall does make teammates better. Um, he's more of a willing passer than Russell Westbrook will say, or even James Harden. James Harden does make teammates better, but I like Wall's willingness to pass. And they got a squad to be competitive. Like I said, first year coach and Steven Seala. We will see what they can do. But I like their future with all the draft. I mean, obviously when you have 8 draft picks coming in, you have plenty of Oladipo's not expiring, so you can choose to move him with picks to get someone better, or more picks, I guess. Or you can choose to resign. They have so much flexibility that's really their world right now.
Yeah, like they have so much like potential to do anything. Like they are sitting in a good spot for sure.
Oh yeah. So now it gets to the Pacers. They just got Karis LeVert in a second rounder. What are your thoughts on that?
I have been a while. Like I've really liked them.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so what's his face? TJ Warren's hurt, right?
Yes.
Okay, so TJ Warren is hurt, but I mean, so you add a player like LeVert, he fits in. He's one of those players that his game is really nice. Like he fits in with a lot of schemes and team,
Mm-hmm.
works well, not very selfish. I mean, the second round pick, I mean, it's a second round pick, I guess, but like adding LeVert's a big piece. I mean, they're because they're a good team. A lot of young guys. LeVert fits the mold perfectly. He just when like he was a lot like LeVert going there to me is a lot like Oladipo going there at one like from the Thunder. Not
Yeah.
the same play style, but it gives me the same vibe. Like very easily fits in well. Probably gonna jump right in and play well. So
Yeah, I agree. So this team I like it. So just trading him straight up for LeVert just kind of feels like Oladipo wasn't going to re-sign. Let's get the best value to get out of Oladipo, which they certainly did. LeVert's a good player. So I just want to say they probably could have gotten maybe a little more for Oladipo because he was playing extremely well this year. But LeVert fits into what they want to do. The Pacers are 10th in offensive rating, 10th in defensive rating. So they're a top 10 team on both sides of the ball. But they shoot a lot of threes, and their percentages are not that great from three. They're a little below league average, but LeVert can certainly help. They bring a more consistent score, and you still have defenders like Brogdon, Miles Turner. Um, let's see if there's any. TJ McConnell he's a good team defender. They still got lengthy guys. Sabonis is obviously good, but they got a little more scoring. Their defense might take a little dip because Oladipo was probably their best defense player. But what they want to do, what they hired, I'm not going to say his last name, but Coach Nate to do, shoot a lot of threes. LeVert will help their scoring, and it'll be good.
I think that like what you lose in defense, you gain. You don't now. I think you lose a little bit in defense, but you get maybe a more well-rounded score.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think
Well, it's
that
certainly a shot creator, which they do need. They did
yeah,
need a
yeah,
little more shot
they,
creation.
yeah, they definitely do get that. Um, I mean, I don't even really look at it because like you said earlier, I look at it more at like what they got for for Victor Oladipo. Victor Oladipo's not signing. What they get for him, I mean, like
Mm-hmm.
you cannot complain with that. A young player, he wants to win, and like I said, he's a versatile shot creating scorer. He's a good player. I,
Mm-hmm.
I It does
And
not hurt their team.
yeah, they still scoring. The biggest concern is LeVert's injury history. He gets injured quite a lot. But like I was saying earlier, LeVert is let me just look exactly what he is. This season he's 18 points, 6 assists, 43% field goal percentage, 30 35% from three, pretty average true shooting 55% true shooting. So my question is, I'm guessing not just because they don't have Warren or Oladipo, obviously, but how often will they use him as the bench role to just carry the bench like the Nets were doing?
I think he's probably gonna have to get more. Like he's averaging 28 minutes a game. Victor Oladipo is getting 33, 34-ish. He's probably going to be closer to that 32, 33 range. I think he's going to be one of those guys where like when you have the whole group in, he fits the mold very well, can do everything pretty solid. And he's one of those guys that like when you give people like Sabonis a breather and you bring in like Goga and like those other guys, those young guys, you leave him out there and he can lead that bench group.
Yeah.
One of those guys. Obviously, you saw it with the Nets, but he's just gonna have to blossom into that starting role more, which he's definitely capable of doing.
Now, before we end today's episode, I've got to ask a question. Nets, do you think they win a title if they're healthy?
I think no. To be honest, I think no, maybe not this year, even though it's really early. So I really want to see them play. I think it's going to be very, very, very close. I think that there are still teams that can compete with them for sure in the East. Maybe like one or two teams that like on paper compete with them. And we'll see what they are when we see them play. I still think that the Lakers can get them. I still think a team like the Lakers can get them if the Clippers stay on what they're capable of doing. I think the Clippers can compete with them. Like Paul George is great. They still have Kawhi. Like they have a good team. They have a great team. Teams like that can Philly is great this year. We'll see what happens when they like get through the whole coronavirus stuff. I mean, you obviously just can't sleep on a team like Boston when they're fully healthy. I mean, like there's just so many things that can happen that I'd say no. It's going to be a tough road. I think they have a tougher road to get there than the Lakers for sure. That's why I think like if the Lakers get there and they play anybody other than them, I think the Lakers for sure win.
So my little synopsis is, I know my preseason I did predict LA to win. Preseason prediction I did predict the Lakers to win. But as the only problem I see is just the Steve Nash thing with Kyrie. Who knows how that plays out? But that plays out okay. The Lakers still cannot guard the perimeter whatsoever, and now the Nets have three of the best perimeter scorers in the league. It's going to be. I think the Nets, if the chemistry doesn't implode and they're healthy, I think the Nets win this title. But that's my little thoughts.
Yeah, I definitely see that happening. I just really want to see how it all plays out as far as like with the Kyrie thing. I don't think it's going to be as big of a deal as people are making it sound. Like you look at Stephen A. Smith saying like he should retire and all that stuff. Like I don't think it's going to be as big of a deal as that sounds. But I think it's going to be fun for sure. I think that the Steve Nash thing, like I said, I've heard like I didn't even know the Steve Nash thing until we got on here. I actually did not know that. But I think that's going to be one of those things like that can they can work it. It's so early in the year. They can work that stuff out, man, for sure.
Yeah. All right. Well, that'll conclude another episode of Halftime Hangout. Thank you to our first guest, Michael Dumpson, for being here.
Hey, man, I appreciate the opportunity, man.
And we will have you again sometime around, and we'll see you next time.